Hey everyone, today we're going to be going through Davinci Resolve and taking a look at the way that we can do a multicam edit. They call it multicam because there's multiple camera angles. So the ones we're looking at here, we'll just look at them quickly. We have this front-facing camera view. That's this one here. Okay. We have the gimbal camera view. Which was where I had it was actually a cell phone on a gimbal, and we can see that this one moves around the piano, has some cool stuff like that going on. So we'll get into that in a minute. And then we also have the overhead cam view. Along with this, we also have an audio file, which is a recording of the song that this was actually the very first thing we did. And then as we shot the videos, we were essentially playing along with this audio file. We were playing it out into the room, and Aaron was able to record it. Actually, if you look on the little trick we used here for this particular video, is if you look, Aaron is wearing a little earpiece right here. And that earpiece, he's listening to this audio file as he plays. And by doing that, we could record 3 different camera angles and keep everything in sync that way. So his performance is consistent, even though we shot this on 3 different cameras and 3 different takes. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump into Davinci Resolve. We'll launch it here. And this is Davinci Resolve 17. Now I am using, I believe, the Pro version of this, but everything I'm going to show you here should also be available in the free version. So I'm going to start a brand new project, and we'll call this Inspector Gadget and Create. Okay, and it just wants to know where it can save stuff. It does want me to update some cache locations and stills, but I don't think that'll be necessary for this take. Okay, so there are a ton of options in Davinci Resolve, and I don't want you to get distracted with everything that's here. So I know this can look overwhelming, and Davinci Resolve is a very powerful and professional level video editing tool. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're only going to be covering the things that we need to know in order to pull off our video edits for this. You can get really fancy with color effects and transitions and all sorts of things, but we're not going to touch on any of that. Down here at the bottom, you'll see there's this little menu, and basically what this does is it talks about, these are like the different stages that you go through as you are editing. So there's your media, so you import your media stuff here, cutting, you can do specialty type cuts here, you can do your editing here, and then this is where you get really fancy into a thing they call fusion, where you can create all kinds of color nodes and lots of different things. You can do even further color correction here, lots and lots of stuff. You can do a whole multi-track audio thing and all that, and then you can decide finally at the end, how do you want to deliver your project? How are you going to export it for people to watch? So let's back up to this very first one here, and we see this media storage, and I can come in here and search for clips this way, but I find it usually easier just to go to the Finder, and here I have the Mac Finder, and I have my files here. And if you haven't downloaded these already, they are on the Google Drive folder for this project. So you can refer to the course outline for links on Google Drive to get these files. I recommend that you would go ahead and download these, and then we're going to drag them into our media pool. That's this area down here. Now, the project automatically had a frame rate that was default. It was probably something like 4K, and it's already detected that these clips are not in 4K. These are actually in a a lower resolution called 1080p. So it wants to know, should we change the project frame rate? And well, the frame rate is like 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, but there's also the resolution. So we want to try to match that. So we're going to say yes. Let's go ahead and change that so that now the project will match, the project settings will match our clip settings, if that makes sense. All right. So now we have in our media tab this area here, which has our media pool. And we've got these 4 clips. Now the first thing I'm doing, I can click on each of these and sort of look at them, and you can see overall they look good. And then when I come to this one, we see a problem. This clip is orientated wrong, so we need to do something to fix that real quick. So if I come over here, I've got this clip selected and I can see a preview of it here. We have this thing over here called the inspector. If I click the inspector, and then I click on video. So what I'm doing is I'm inspecting this clip that we see right here. So usually the inspector's only helping you adjust parameters of whatever you see in this, this view window source. They call it the source window. So right here I've got some options. One of those is to rotate angle. Now I want to rotate this clip by 90 degrees, so I can click and drag this, which works, and if I hold the shift key it snaps to more precise angles a little bit. It's not doing a great job of that though, but if I just double click here I can type 90 and hit tab, and now my clip is at a 90-degree angle. Now my next problem though is that it is not scaled up large enough. So we do what's called scaling, or we can come up here to the zoom, and I can actually just click my mouse and drag it to the right, and we see that it's making that clip larger. And I just want to go just large enough that it comes all the way to the edge of my view window. And once I'm there, so in this clip I went to 1.78. I want to make sure it just at least goes there. I could even go, you know, a little bit more if I wanted to. It wouldn't hurt anything if I did, but you know, somewhere around there is going to be just fine. Okay, so now when I click on this clip or this clip or this clip, we have the same orientation for the view. So that's great. Now that I've fixed that, I'm ready to create what's called a multicam clip. So some of you may have seen how Aaron did his edits in Camtasia, or if you watch the other tutorial on iMovie, the technique for getting different camera angles to show is that you just lay all your clips out on the timeline and you just cut away the stuff you don't want to see. Well, in a professional editor like Davinci Resolve, they have a much better way of doing this, and so we're going to take a look at that now. So first what we have to do is create what's called a multi-cam clip, or a multi-camera clip. So to do that I'm going to drag my mouse over all 4 of these clips here. The audio is also considered a clip, and I'm going to right click on any one of them, and you'll see we have this option to create new multicam clip using selected clips. And you can see the red, the ones that have the red highlight are all selected, so I'm going to click that. And now I have my options. So the first thing is we can ignore the time code for now. We're not using a time coded system on any of these clips. That gets into like kind of a fancy camera setup that we did not use, so we're going to ignore that. We're going to name our clip. I like to usually just name it multicam. You can name it really whatever you want, but multicam I think is fine. Now you can see it's already selected a frame rate of 30. I could actually change this here if I wanted to, but the original footage that we shot was also in 30 frames per second. So I don't want to change that. Now this one's super important though, the angle sync. So here's the thing, this camera was started at a certain time, this camera was started at a different time, this one was started at a different time, So if I try to start them all at the all together, they're not going to line up properly. I'm going to have a whole mess of different sound and noise coming because they're not in sync. If I come down here, though, I have some other options. I can select out. That would mean if all the clips ended at the exact same time. Well, again, we ended this clip. We turned the camera off at different times for each of these, so that's not going to work either. There is a time code option, but we didn't use any special time code synchronization between cameras, so that's not going to work either. But this one here, sound, this is what we really want. The sound option means that it's going to listen, it's going to analyze the sound on each of these clips, and then it'll synchronize them based on what is heard. Well, that's great because the one commonality that these all have is the song. The song is the same all the way through on all 4 clips. So we can use that sound to synchronize our clips, okay? And Davinci Resolve does that automatically for us, which is really awesome. So the next thing is angle name. This isn't super critical, but you can, if you look over here, I named my clips. I put this one as overhead cam, gimbal cam, front facing cam. So I can actually use the clip name to create my angle names. And that'll make a little more sense in a minute, but once we create our multicam clip, our angle names are going to be important. So we've got that. We've got split multicam clips at gaps. You could ignore that. We're not going to use that. Detect clips from same camera. We used different cameras on all 3 of these, so we don't need to worry about that. And then there is this move source clips to original clips bin. This I think sometimes makes things a little confusing, so I'm going to turn that off for now. And we're going to go ahead and click create. It's going to analyze the audio, and you can see now we have a new clip here called multicam, and if I click it, we have 4 panels here within our viewer. This one is the audio, front cam, gimbal cam, and overhead cam. So now that we've created this multicam clip, we're actually going to skip this cuts option because we don't really need it for what we're doing here today, and jump straight over to the edit tab here. When I click that, you'll notice we still see our clips here, but we have this timeline, but right now there's nothing on the timeline. What I can do is drag our multicam clip down and bring it to the beginning, and we have now, you'll see an audio track and a multicam track. So it's already detected that, hey, this one is audio, so it automatically figured that out by itself. But we have this multicam up here. Now the reason we can't see anything yet is that we need to change our viewer. Now if you don't see, by the way, this side-by-side view, I have these two side-by-sides. You can click up here to, this is a single view, and this goes to toggles back and forth between the split view and the single view. We want to see this side-by-side because as we're making our edits, we're going to be able to select our angles over here and then see what angles actually see the result over here, and that'll make more sense in just a second. So, but what I have to do to see that is I got to come to this little drop down over here, and right now we're seeing the source file. Well, the source right now hasn't been edited, and this source is not very helpful currently. But if I come here to multicam, now I see my angles. Now notice when I hover over these, my mouse head changes from a regular mouse pointer to a razor blade, and that's because it's going to allow us to actually make our cuts or change angles just by clicking on the angle we want at any given point in time. Now, before I do this, I want to point out that right now what's selected here is video and audio. So let me show you what that means. If I put my playhead, let's say to this point, and then I click here, I've made a cut. And you can see now it's saying, oh, here's our video. And even if you look down in the timeline, you'll see there's this little cut. There's a little cut in our timeline. And then if I go, let's say here, there's another cut, and I've just switched at that moment in time to our overhead cam angle. And now if I go here and click here, I've switched that as well. So this is all pretty good, except there's one big problem, and that is that not only have I changed the angle, but I've also changed the audio source. So what do I mean by that? Well, oops, sorry, didn't mean to zoom out there. So our audio source, we have to think about is that we have an audio track which is shown on this channel right here, and that's what this is also represented up here. But don't forget that each of these camera angles also has audio as part of it. The audio is embedded into the video clip. So if you listen, what happened now, I'll play this, and you'll hear that the audio changes based off of, let me go, I'll try to go, I'm going to zoom this in just a little so that we can, I'll do another couple really fast cuts, and you can hear, you'll hear the audio actually changes each time, which is not really what we want. So give this a listen. It's subtle, but there's a little, it's subtle, but there's a little bit of a difference in the sound in each one, and that's because we're switching from the camera angle audio. So that's not going to work very well. So I'm going to undo those changes by hitting Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, and that's an undo command. One more time, and now I've gotten rid of all those cuts I just made. So now we're back to just this black screen, and that's because right now we have the audio selected. Well, the audio as the video angle is going to be black because there is no video on that track. Okay, so let's back up here. But it's cool that I can move the timeline, and you can see where those angles would be if we were showing them. So that's really handy. So you'll notice there's this spot where Aaron claps. And look what a great job Davinci resolves. He's clapping here, he's clapping here, he's clapping here. It's done such a great job of synchronizing all that stuff up. It's really, really great. Okay, so I'm going to come up to about here. And the first thing I think I'll do is we have about, what is this? 50, almost 50 seconds of dead time where there's nothing going on special. So we're going to drag this and get rid of all of this this stuff at the beginning. And then I'm going to select this and drag it back. So what I did is I just trimmed all that extra stuff at the beginning we don't need. So the next thing, going back to our clip and our razor blade here, if I select this little tool and I make my cuts, then it will change the audio source but not the video source. If I have this one selected, that does what we just saw, where it changes the video angle and the audio source, the audio angle, if you will, as well. But if I select just this, then what I'm going to get is when I click here or here or here to change my video angle, it's going to keep my audio source the same, which is what I want, because that's going to give us a much nicer, consistent sound in our edit. So now I can select this, and now I can click between these three video angles without worrying about my sound being changed up on me. So now I'm going to show you how quick this can actually go that we've done this. I'm going to just hit the play button, and I'm literally going to be making my cuts and my edits in real time as the video is playing. Okay, I'll do that for a little bit and then we'll talk about it. So here we go. I'm going to hit play, and for starters, by the way, I want to start with a good angle. I think we'll start with this angle right here. So I'm going to go ahead for starters and make my first cut. Let's see, let's get on there. Maybe I have to move just into it a little. There we go. So there we are in our first cut, and we're ready to start. So here we go. I'm going to hit the space bar, or I can click the play button. Either way, it will start the song, and I'm going to just click as it's playing. Okay, it's playing. I'm going to switch to this angle, and all I did was click, and now I'm switching to this angle, and back to the multicam. Okay, I'll let this be a longer clip, and now overhead. Back to the gimbal. I can't switch to the front face right here because the cameraman's walking around. I'll go back to the overhead. Now I'll go to front face. You can see all those cuts being made. And this is a great angle right here. I'm switching to the so you can see all that editing, all of that editing happened just right there. Now there was a spot right here where you could see the camera guy, that was me, got a little bit in the way. By the way, if you hit the left arrow and right arrow, you can move through this frame by frame. Each time I hit the arrow, it moves through it. So there's a couple ways I could edit this. I could just select this, go to my inspector, and I could just zoom it in a little bit. And now you can't see it. And I just edited only this little clip that I just created, which is really cool. So now when I play that, there's no camera in the view. Now another way I could have dealt with that, I'm going to undo that. Another way I could have dealt with that is I could have just drug this back, or actually selected right in the middle. You'll see where this my mouse head is changed, and see I can drag this around. But I like what we did. So I don't want to get too much into the editing because it does get out of the scope of what we're trying to accomplish here. As far as like really detailing it, you can play with those. There's these different tools, and actually I think this is the one I want for moving. Yeah, see how I move this around? I could actually back it out that way so that the camera, so basically I just moved the edit point so that that camera doesn't get seen. Oops, wrong way. So then we never see the camera that way. So there's lots of different ways you could do this. I just showed you two different ways to do it. And you know, we can keep it like this. This is fine. So we can see though, as the timing goes on, all those cuts I made are done. Okay. So this is awesome. I'm going to turn the inspector off, and you can see I get my view back on here. If that inspector's up here, it pushes it out of the way temporarily, so I'll turn the inspector off, and now I can see my camera angles again. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this, but look at the front face camera, and as it's playing, look what happens right here. Our camera fell. That's because Aaron just set it on the back of the piano, and it actually fell inside of the piano. So we can't use that angle right now, at least. At the very, very end of the video, I was able to sneak over there and put the camera back up, and you will see that. So for the time being, I only have these two camera angles to work with. So let's see, we just came from here, and now we're, you know, it's cool because I can just move through all this and see all the edits we made. All right, so let's see where we want to go from here. I'm going to hit play again and decide when to go back to this angle. like that spot right there. That's a good view. And I'm going to go back. Back again. Now you can see I'm setting up that camera on the top, and I can use it right there. And I'll go back here, and I think that will do it. So I think I'll do something like a fade out on the piano at the very end. So now what I can do, I'm going to go back to my pointer tool. I know I want to end it right around here. Matter of fact, I can use this blade tool even, put my mouse down here and click it, and then go to my pointer tool. All this extra footage back here is just, it's nothing important. So I can actually just click on this, and oh, let me take my blade tool, and I'm going to cut this audio in the same spot. Because remember, the audio and the video are two separate things here. So now I'm going to select this video and this audio, and I'm going to hit the delete key and get rid of both of those. Okay, so here we go. That's all there was to it. Now all this stuff is cut, and I can even just go and hide this split screen view, and now I'm just seeing the output of what we created. So this is really cool. We got 3 different angles, and I mean, look how easy that was to chop up with Davinci Resolve. It took a little bit more planning and a little bit of setup to get this, but now I'm here in the editing. This is super easy and super simple to work with. Makes for a really cool video. Now, in a second, there's a spot where the piano gets a little more intense. So with the gimbal, I decided to move more quickly, and that's right here. So I'm moving fast around behind and getting a good shot of the keys. And that helps really create a cool effect. Awesome. Okay, awesome, very cool. And then we get our angle, and there's a lot of different ways we could have ended that or decided to do that, but you know, it's really just kind of up to you. Now you might notice some things over here, and now depending on if you have a paid version or a free version of Davinci Resolve, there's going to be more or less options here. Lots and lots of cool stuff you can do. Lighting effects, green screen if you have a green screen, noise reduction if there's a lot of noise in there, sharpening. You can add all kinds of cool styles, and it'll even let you preview it, which is cool. If you just hover your mouse over it, it'll show you what that effect would look like. Obviously, there's way too more. I do like the vignette effect sometimes. I think that's a really cool one. Sometimes I'll use stuff like that. Motion blurs, texture, so all these effects are great. And if you have third-party effects that maybe you've purchased, a lot of those can work inside of Davinci Resolve, which is also really, really cool. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So we've really come in here. We've done our edits. We've got that all set up. Again, you know, Fusion, this is getting way super advanced. We're not going to deal with any of that. The color, I'll just briefly mention, you can do color adjustment type things. You know, if you say, hey, I need to have, you know, I need to lift up the reds or the gamma, you know, you can brighten things up. The gain is another type of brightness you can do. Davinci Resolve is actually known for being really, really advanced with its color options, but that's, you know, that's a whole nother thing that we don't want to get into right now. And again, this has all to do with the sound and the audio. You can really get fancy with how you want to edit that as well. So now that we've got our cuts together and we're ready to go, we're going to go over to the delivery. And delivery just means, hey, now it's time to decide how do we want this to be exported out of Davinci Resolve. Well, we've got a lot of options. By default, we have this custom where we can set the name. We can set what format. I'll just mention that when it comes to codec, that's what's one of the most important things that will affect how large the file will be when you export it. So an H.264 compresses the file, which is really nice. If you do something like ProRes, that's going to create a really large file. It's going to be very, massive, and usually for most people that's not going to be ideal unless you're trying to share your project with like another professional video editor or something like that. So I would recommend H.264 is probably your best bet. This is really common for YouTube and things like that. You can also go straight to YouTube here, and that setting is basically already setting your so you can see right there it already set the video codec to H.264 when we selected that option. I think Vimeo also uses that. Twitter probably does too. So you can see it's really common, especially for like web formats. And there's a whole bunch of options, but I think even just if you select the YouTube option, that's probably going to be a great file size. And good quality at the same time. So that's it. So we're just going to come in here and say Inspector Gadget, and sometimes I'll put like final or export or something like that so that I know exactly where I'm going to do with that. I'm going to browse and decide where do I want this to go. I'm going to say OK. And I have on my, I think it was on my downloads, I have is it this folder? Let me find my folder here. I got too many things in my downloads. And you don't have to, you can even just export this to the desktop. Yeah, it looks like I've got way too much in there. I'm going to have to dig through and find where that's actually, where the other ones are. So for now, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to put it in my downloads folder. That's perfectly fine. Now I've got this Inspector Gadget final.mov. So that's the format. And I just click Save. And up here we have this render QE, which I don't know. Oh, that's because we have to click this button here. And this confused me more than once. I was like, why isn't it rendering? It's because you have to come down here and click Add to Render Queue. So I'm going to click that. There it is. So now it's set in the render queue, meaning it's ready to be rendered. So that was kind of confusing the first time I used Davinci Resolve, and it even just caught me off guard just now because I forgot about that setting. So you got to add it to the queue once you've selected your settings. Now it's ready to go, and then the last step is click Render All. So click that button, and what you'll see is right here, it's actually rendering those clips, and it's creating a new video file based off of all the edits that we created just now. So this is really, really awesome. It's running through, rendering it out, almost done. And the more powerful your computer is, the faster it will do that. If it takes a little while, or if it takes longer than what you just saw, don't worry. I'm working with a machine that has a lot of power, so it does that stuff pretty quickly. So here we go. So now I can go back to my downloads, and here's my file, Inspector Gadget Final. I'll open it with QuickTime, and I can watch the fully produced copy of my video. And there we go. We hear our piano. There's our first cut. And we have a fully produced video right there. So I hope you guys really enjoyed getting a little bit acquainted here with DaVinci Resolve. It's a super awesome program, and even the free version of DaVinci Resolve, it's just amazing what it will allow you to do. So much better, I think, in my opinion, than what you get with other free solutions. Just be prepared for a little bit of visual overload. There is a lot going on in DaVinci Resolve because it's super powerful. But if you stick to just the things I showed you here in this video, you'll be just fine, and I think you'll really enjoy it, especially the more time you spend with it. You'll start to learn more and more of the things that you can do as you explore. Also, keep in mind, there's lots and lots of tutorials on YouTube and places like that where you can find out how to do different types of edits and use these different tools more in depth if you're interested in getting to a more professional level with DaVinci Resolve. But this will be definitely enough to get you going and having fun creating some really awesome videos. Hope you really enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.